Hey, this is Penny again.
And I am Francis, and welcome to another episode of our
Out-
podcast,
Outsourcing
Outsourcing
and
and More.
more. So today, episode
Today,
3, we're talking about onboarding and the hiccups of our most of our clients are actually experiencing this, right?
yes, I mean it's either with us or prior to,
Yeah, partnering with us,
to
yeah.
partnering with us. We have heard of and experienced
Yes.
our own fair share of onboarding hiccups. And when we say hiccups, it's not just like the, and then excuse me. It's really more, like a huge hiccup, like
Yeah.
earth mind shattering. Yeah. But anyway, we're here to talk about that, and hopefully, we want to be able to share some experiences
Yes.
and what we've since learned through in terms of how to avoid it and make uh, uh,
The onboarding
the
process
onboarding process
seamless.
seamless. And
Yes.
of course, we're talking about business process outsourcing, which is the core of our business, Virtua Solutions Outsourcing, and that's why we feel that I have something to say.
So for you, what's the biggest hiccup that we've experienced so far?
The biggest hiccup, we lost a client, literally. I mean that's what you were asking for.
Yeah.
Yes.
And why did I mean, if we're talking about onboarding, why did you think we lost that client?
Uh, I feel like it was a cascade of things. I mean, not to mention that it was sort of part of a period when we were, I feel like experimenting.
Yeah.
Like matching clients. We used to have this like very ideal formula of knowing what is and what we're doing, and it was sort of like our that
I
you know
think
when you try to look for, I'm sorry, if you try to look for like the root cause of something. Number one, it was one of our first forays outside of
customer support.
customer support.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it was first, yeah.
Yes, and we thought, they said they needed VA.
Virtual assistant.
I'm
For
sorry,
those of
yeah.
you who don't
We were
know,
talking
virtual
about
assistant.
virtual assistants, and then like in our head, and also based on experience, virtual assistants are like, it's this industry where you find a person who does a variety of things
Yes, a
to other
variety
people.
of things.
And because it's a variety of things, we were looking for resumes that said they did a variety of things, and we're like, okay.
But I mean, we met with this client, right? Which we do with all of our clients, to try to kind of figure out what person they actually need, what skill
Mm-hmm.
set they actually need, which is mostly what we ask our clients when we're finding people for them. And I think
Are we
part of
sharing? Are we sharing
no,
our
no, no.
our for? Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think that it's that special. I feel like a part of our engagement is what makes it successful. But you know, we take a good amount of time to
Really,
really
yes,
understand the client, what they're doing, what they're looking
yeah.
for.
What tasks they want this VA or this outsourced person.
And mind you, we're
Yeah.
still leading up to what caused the hiccup, right?
Yes.
So it's one of hopefully just several bullet points, but we're just gonna harp on this one particular instance because in a way it still stings.
Yeah, it still sings. Of course, you always want our contracts to be successful.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I did notice with this client of ours is, um, they said they wanted a virtual assistant, but the the scope of it wasn't as clear.
It wasn't.
Yeah, the skill set of what they're looking for wasn't as clear. Like they would say, "I want my email to be managed and whatnot," but there's a lot of what goes into email management. But what do they mean by email management?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, did you
what are
want
they
to
expecting
answer,
with yeah,
organize?
yes,
I feel like again at that time, and this is talking uh, on hindsight, because again there were learnings, but I remember at the time it felt like, are we not asking the right questions, or was the customer being, was the client being intentionally vague, or maybe they didn't know exactly what they wanted. And they were just like, I'm looking for email management. I'm looking for somebody to manage all of our files, our
yeah,
inventory, our documentation and stuff. And I was like, Okay. I mean, if you think about it, like, again,
It should be easily understandable, right? But
yeah,
different people have different definitions or meanings of what they mean about specific tasks.
and
Like, and we're just
goals.
harping on email management because this is one
That was
task that,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, that was like one of the tasks that really stood out. So I guess, if are we trying to write down what happened? It was maybe not a clear understanding of what the actual goals are.
goals are for the outsource. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, what you're actually looking for. It's not as simple as saying admin tasks. It's not
yeah,
it's not that, because if you are not clear of what you want this person to do, you're definitely not going to get what you expect.
yeah,
You have to vocalize
and
what you're expecting.
yeah, and maybe some people would think that really shouldn't be your concern anymore, because that's the reason why you hired the VA. The
Yeah.
VA should have been able to suss out uh, the tasks that you should be doing for themselves. And maybe in a way, I agree, but it's also the reason why we intermediate
Yes.
as an outsourcing agency. We
And it's called the partnership, right? Even with
is it?
relationships, there's you have to communicate.
Yes,
Yeah. You
yeah,
can't just expect someone to read your mind and expect them to do what you want them to do without actually
yeah.
telling
Being
them
able to
and show, or
really
even
line it
showing
up.
them
Mm-hmm.
what you want to happen.
Yeah, and actually, that you know, you know what? Gonna make a clear comparison between one of the current people that we're
Yeah.
onboarding now, and how I feel like this is going to be a more successful partnership. Uh, so were we not able to set clear goals at that time? I felt like we were trying to at that time. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
we thought we succeeded, but apparently we didn't. Setting goals, and this is part of the onboarding. Uh, this was like a cascade of faults, because we met with the client first. We tried to get what they wanted, and then from there we said we were going to match you
A virtual
with a
assistant. Yeah.
virtual assistant. Yeah, and then where where I feel that was an issue then is that we said, again, VAs. I think we were too confident with our own definition of what a VA was supposed to be.
Yes.
So I feel like there was a skills mismatch, or was it a skills mismatch or an experience mismatch? Um, think about it this way. Virtual assistance is such a
A broad. Yeah.
large scope that when you think about it, you look for people to say I have VA experience, but when you
Mm.
ask them what have you done exactly, it might invariably fall into a number of things. Like people could have been doing inventory work,
Yes.
Amazon fulfillment, or
Mm-hmm.
inventory
Or even
hunting,
social media,
or
which
social
we've
media,
been
like
mentioning.
everything.
Yeah, every episode we've been
Yeah,
mentioning, but yeah, it's
and so
one of
and so
those things
yeah,
that virtual assistants do. Yeah.
and some VAs actually don't fall under that category because
Yes.
they've actually done more customer service work. It's
Yes.
just you know lumped into the general virtual assistant work, but they were if you think about what they've actually done, um, it was more somebody taking pictures of the camera, but it was more tier one support. So
Mm-hmm.
granted, um, partly that was where uh, we might have tread lower. But remember when we were hiring,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a time when when you're looking for VAs, what exactly were we looking for, skills wise? And I feel like we were in that customer service mindset that
Yeah.
you have to have good communication skills. Although I think communication skills should really be a given.
Yeah. It's basic.
It's
Yeah.
basic. But one thing that I realize is that some people you might should value more for the actual skill set rather than like if there are, because we kind of always valued that like
Mm.
how near native are you. We've always graded somebody from near native to native speaker, or at the very least are you
fluent enough to
fluent enough.
communicate
Yeah,
your thoughts.
yeah. And while it should remain as important, like I said, we might have given more emphasis on the English speaking skills without really looking at like what the actual skill set is. Because if you're looking for EA, we assume that you'll need to be talking to the client more, like on a more regular basis compared to other VA work. Because executive assistant, they'll be knocking on your doors most of the time. And what I feel like what we did was we eventually landed on candidates that had really good English skills, had some VA work, and I feel like we trusted that they'll be good enough to pick up
Yeah.
on the work itself.
Yes.
And I think that's where I do remember that that's where some of the problem actually lied. Because and remember that we had to join
Yeah, the call.
the calls, and
Yeah.
like immediately there was almost that impending sense of doom that they could, mayday, mayday, mismatch, mismatch. But somehow we were like, kaya nila. They can do this.
Mm-hmm.
They can. Was the trust misplaced? I was kind of hoping that, in a way it wouldn't, but or rather that the trust would have been well placed rather.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Trying
with
to feel
this
about it.
client as well, and even with some of the clients, especially solopreneurs, um, when you're onboarding, you're an outsourced team or an outsourced person. When you're onboarding them, you need to kind of document your processes, the processes that you want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are some instances where that person can just run with it, right? There
Yeah.
are some instances, but if we're talking about successful onboarding, you have to document your processes, because if not, they're just going to do their own process and you might not have a say much
Yeah.
on it. So documenting your processes, and the other side of that is if you have too much documented processes, which
Yeah.
it
Which limits flexibility.
limits flexibility. And when we hire people, we do try to hire people that are not yes people who just
Ooh,
do
yeah.
the processes that you do, but are able to actually give feedback regarding the process and streamline that for the company.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the other side of it is a lot of documented processes that it gets blurry and confusing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's one part. Yes, documented processes, but make sure that if you do have those documentation, that it's very clear, that it's easily understood by someone new coming
Or
in.
open to interpretation.
Yes.
If not, I mean, you might, and if you've seen, like, coming into some work before, like a good decade or so ago, you come into a company and they say we have this process, and you look into it and it's just like, it's a little bit weird. Like, is this open to improvement? And I
Yeah.
feel like a good client would say yes, of course, if it makes the process better, then they should, right? But I feel like it's not that we're moving away from it, but going back to the plain uh, onboarding hiccups. It really comes back to, maybe a good question is, how important is onboarding to a good relationship, and why hiccups are to be avoided at all costs.
Um, I think I read this somewhere that the first 90 days of someone joining your team is crucial because it sets the tone for the entire work experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so in those 90 days, apart from having those processes in place, having alignment in the goals
Mm-hmm.
that this person is supposed to achieve, apart from that, there should also be those first 90 days is also your opportunity to get them into your fold, right? To make them comfortable with you. I mean, even if this is someone like miles away, right? There are things that you can do to make them feel part of your company. And anyone, and we've seen this with most of our agents. If they feel that they're part of the company, they will care more,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
we're
they
not
will
just
give
talking
feedback.
miles away.
Yeah.
It's thousands of miles away.
An ocean
An
away
ocean
for the
away.
US, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good topic. Um, One thing that we've always harped on is I formed a contract with you,
Mm-hmm.
and you just agreed to pay, you know, upwards to thousands of dollars for me to work for you. You know,
Mm.
that's a solid investment
Yes.
that you're taking out of your pocket to work with somebody who you neither see physically. No, you can't see physically, and entrusting a whole lot of work that your company relies
Yes.
on, right? And that creates a lot of, I wouldn't say distrust, but opportunities for a person to doubt the moment, like the seed of doubt
Yeah, yeah,
emerges,
yeah.
right?
Yes, yes.
Eh,
Just one hiccup. There's
Yeah,
already that seed of doubt.
yeah. Take it back to just say, in a regular office setting. You know how you could easily, like, if there's a new hire,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you're the boss and you walk and you see that person, like, I don't know, not doing anything, even in that kind of interaction, you might be able to start form you a lot of people would form doubts, like, oh my gosh, it's not working, and then you start harping on everything that he's doing. Every time he's not working, every time he's coming out of the restroom, every time he's coming back from break, you're almost like building this perception that this person is not working,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That it could be as it could snowball as easily as that. What more if that person is, again, an ocean away, and then some.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why it's so important that you set the right tone. And it's like, for me, it's actually a lot harder when you're not the person doing the work. Like, I'm pretty confident about my work, like 66 66, where did that come from? Like, it's under 100, but I'm pretty sure, like, my Upwork profile has close to like 60 plus jobs done. And then
Mm.
since then, with your own clients, how can I confidently say that, I have people lining up wanting to work with you?
Mm.
It's because I know my own work ethic. But the
Mm.
harder thing is,
When
now
you're
that we're holding, or that we're running a business that kind of does the same model, getting skilled and qualified individuals to work for clients that we get contracts for.
yes.
And sometimes it's heartbreaking
Mm.
to see a client not give one of your agents a chance because of some misconception.
Yes.
And some of the problems there, like, I mean, we go back to onboarding hiccups. It's not just from the agency's part. Sometimes it's on the agent's part. You introduce an agent for the first time, and their audio keeps cutting off. Like,
Yes.
this person could be the best, but because of that first,
Perception, or
yeah, first
Yeah.
impression, you're like, can you hear me?
You do that so well.
Hey guys, I just
It's not an audio problem. He's really trying.
yeah. But you've seen it, and interviews
Mm.
can really break that,
Yes.
that
That audio.
perception of this person's skill. So even as little as that, like making sure that that your agent's audio is working, can avoid so much. Because at the end of the day, when that person is really, for example, really good internet, one day of that person's internet breaking up is not gonna change the perception. Oh, it's one day.
Yeah.
But if you meet them for the first time and they have that, like, that god awful headset that makes you sound like you bought
Or that, their fan is like
blowing
directly.
into the mic, dogs in the background,
Yes.
chickens in the background,
Chickens
chickens
that are everywhere.
everywhere. Why is the Philippines, why do we have
They
more
feel like
chickens than dogs?
we live in a farm,
Yeah.
which we don't. And I have to keep telling people that I actually live in the most populous
City.
city.
I used to live 21 floors up. Chickens. Where do these chickens
They
come
have a way
from?
of piercing through audio.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But again, the first impression, you meet them for the first time. Solid, quiet background, good internet, makes such a great impression
yes.
on the client that it builds that that trust that, oh, I love this. It's like, it's like buying a great, store modeled outfit. You look
Yeah.
at, you just want to take like the whole outfit off of the store. That's the kind of trust that you wanted to build. So you
Yes.
want to dress up that agent as much as possible. And like if you want to avoid in terms of onboarding hiccups, first impressions, definitely. I'm gonna just write that down. If it's at all possible, like if you as an agency owner or an outsourcing agency are making introductions, if you can possibly, if at all possible, meet with the agent like 30 minutes before,
Yes.
look at their background. Is there laundry hanging from one corner,
Yeah, and I think and we do this because we're fully remote, right?
We're
And not
100% remote.
everyone that we know or are starting off like they're starting off working remotely, right?
Mm.
So they don't know
They don't
like the
understand
basics. Yeah,
exactly.
they don't know the basics that you have to have, good audio, good background, nothing's
Or at least
distracting.
blur
Blur.
your background
Yeah.
so you don't see what's going on.
Slipping.
Yeah. Like even if you choose, like one of those backgrounds, actually even then, like if you choose one of those like backgrounds that have like design like beach
Yeah.
at the
Yes.
back, make sure that you don't fade into the background every now and then because that's also distracting.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
It
yes.
sounds like you're nitpicking, but when you're trying to make a good impression with a client, especially for the first time, again, when you're building that trust, you want to give them a Ferrari, even though they bought a Honda. You want to
What I
make
will
them
also
feel like they got a
yes,
Ferrari.
and I think just in relation to first impressions, I think one thing that I do also notice if that outsourced person or outsourced agency doesn't ask you a lot of questions about what the day to day is going to be like, when do you want me to report back to you or to update you, if they don't ask those questions and it's crucial for both of you to be to for the partnership to work, then that's also a red flag.
I tend to gauge how much they need, especially if they say I'm venturing into getting outsourced support. Let's go back to virtual assistant because a lot of these like new companies or recently like I finally have budget to get 3A. But when they do, they say that they need it, but they don't exactly know what to do with it. And in a way that's as much a fault of the agency for not being able to
Extract that, yeah,
extract that
information.
need or at least help the client structure the need. And that's why we've started, remember, we started implementing like checklists. And
Yes.
there was this one time I had you know we had this agenda, this is your day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you say day one, you're kind of expecting that this is your day one. You're gonna have introductions, but this is what you're gonna do for the rest of the day.
Yes.
And then there was like, I remember that when the meeting ended after 1 hour, okay, then I will see you tomorrow. I was like, wait,
Aren't we
day,
starting
this is day
today?
one.
Yeah.
What's the agent gonna do for the next 7 hours? And the client was like, oh, and so I mean that's at that point you just realize that you kind of have to take over and then say like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Oh no, I no wait, I remember. So he did want. I remember the client wanted to utilize the time, but it was in his mind. It was just more like, "Hi, my name is." I just wanted to put a face to the name, and then I'll see you tomorrow. But I was like, let's not waste
Yeah. The opportunity
let's
to talk. Yeah.
yes, let's take
Mm.
advantage of this opportunity, and let's say let's do this. Maybe let's talk about expectations
Yeah.
about what you're looking for from the agent, and then we can give opportunities for VA to ask questions
Yes.
of you, like how much do you want to get in his head? Do you want
Mm.
him to manage your social media accounts? Maybe let's come up with a checklist of things that we wanna uh, uh, tick off by the end
Yes.
of this time. Do you need? And that's honestly like things that he realized right at that moment. It's like, do you need an email ad? Do you
Yeah.
need the
The
agent to have an
tools.
email address? So I was like,
Yes.
yes. Does she need to join your Slack channel? Are you using Slack? Are you using
Yeah.
WhatsApp? Are you using Viber for business? Are you using any CRM that she needs to be part of? So you just created like we ended up with I think 8 checkboxes. Add to social media accounts, add
Yes.
to CRM, add to the
To
email,
all the
and then give
tools.
access to the uh, because he was I think a co-founder, if I remember he was a co-founder. Uh, does he need access to your personal email,
Yes.
Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly, some of the things that he never thought of, or maybe he was thinking of it at the back of his head, but never really had time to fully
Yeah.
realize
Flesh
the
it out. Yeah.
task.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think one of our clients does this or is trying to do this where they
yeah,
do have a checklist of all the tools that the customer support person needs, but there's a lot of permissioning involved, like a lot of
uh,
permissions involved, and that it's not enough to say, give me access to this. But then they also need admin access to be able to do their job.
yeah.
So it could be just a simple checklist, depending on what you need or what you need this person to do, this
Mm,
outsource agent to do. Have that list of tools that this person needs to do their job.
yeah. So I'm pretty sure that it falls down. It really falls down into every facet that's
Mm.
interacting. So the client has a responsibility, the agent has a
Yes.
responsibility, the VA has a responsibility. Let's say VA and the customer service team, because some of those issues that tend to pop up is that like it's day one and people are starting training and they don't have access yet.
Yes.
So
So it's very hard to actually go through the training and not be able to play around with what they're
yeah,
going to support,
um,
or you're training them for the software, and okay, it's all theoretical, right? It's
and that's
all
like the
concept.
hardest
Yeah,
thing.
instead of being able to play around with the system and know, oh, this is
Yeah.
what they're teaching, this is what I have to do to be able to understand how to navigate and support
Yeah.
this app. So those tools are very important.
Or that you're wasting resource time because sometimes they have to allocate uh people from their team to train you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like when you're dealing with startups, sometimes the people who can train you are not just they're not just mentors or team leaders. You're
Yes.
actually getting training directly from the chief technology officer,
Yes.
from the chief operating officer. It's like you can
Yeah,
you
they
can
actually
almost
have
brag
other yeah.
that I got trained by the CEO
Yes.
personally because at that time there was 4 people in their team, one of them being the CEO. But yeah, so much to avoid. I mean, you have the goals is one thing, and
Yes.
then the first impression is one thing, but the checklist for me is
Yeah.
crucial because that's what wastes money.
Yes. It makes
Because
you efficient if you have a checklist of things that you would give your
mm,
outsource agent to do, to have access to. It's you're not wasting your time for the first day.
yeah. One thing that I also remember, I mean, we survived this particular hiccup. We survived this particular hiccup, but let's talk about it as in the general sense, is not setting milestones
Yes, true.
for performance. You can't just say, okay, we passed the first month.
Like yes,
And
and
they
then
say, congratulations, we passed the first month. Everybody's just like high fiving and but you're because sometimes they won't say it. if they're dissatisfied with
Yeah.
this with what the service that you're providing them.
Yeah. So it's what you're saying is have that milestone of what the client or the business owner is expecting to happen in the
Mm.
first 30 days, 30, 60, 90. I
Yeah.
know most business owners would understand what 30, 60, 90 is, but you know what you're expecting from the team. And if,
Yes.
for example, that team doesn't meet what you're expecting the first 30 days, then find out why. It could be
Exactly.
like, for example, just going back, it could be because they didn't have access to the tools that they needed to have
And
access
thus
to.
training was delayed.
Training
That
was
could be.
delayed. Yeah, yeah.
Or if, say, for example, are you not passing enough knowledge for them to be able to
Yes.
independently do their jobs? Or, do you
Or
feel
cascading that information, like all of the product up, because we work with a lot of tech companies, right?
yeah.
There's always a lot of updates with software. I mean, it happens every 2 weeks, sometimes every day. There's an update,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's a big platform. If you're not able to cascade all of the updates from the onshore team or the development team,
Yeah.
and then cascade that to the supporting of the outsource agents, that's going to also hinder their onboarding.
I wouldn't exactly say that you shouldn't rest on your laurels because you never really should.
Yes.
But the important thing is that it's not about getting to the first invoice.
Yeah.
It's getting to the first milestone
Yes.
and what you do with that milestone. Because
Yes.
again, benchmarking, setting milestones is all about, and again, especially if a client has never done outsourcing before, they're putting out massive amounts of money, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It's money that's literally going down the drain for them if they think that they're not achieving what they set out to achieve. So you have to be there and ready to tell them, this is what we did in the first 30 days. Here's some of the the pitfalls that we encountered. Here's how we want to improve it. And you want to tell them that we want to continue to the next 60 and 90 days. And to be fair, some of these outsourcing processes are fairly robotic. Here's a customer service task. You're gonna man the desk from 8 to 5, and here's a list of FAQs that you answer,
Yep.
and we just want you to answer them, and and sometimes that's that. It's gonna run by itself. It's automatic, but the reality is a lot of companies are dynamic.
Yes.
Their processes will change, and they will rely on. See, the thing is, you can't just say marching orders, and
Yeah.
expect that a team would do. And that's, I feel like, again, we owe a lot of our success in being able to close the gap between
Yes.
the dynamics and how to meet challenges. But the surprising thing is that if you start onboarding by saying, you're gonna give us directions, but we're gonna take those directions and give it back to you because we feel that there is an opportunity for improvement, and they have to agree with that. Otherwise, they're not going to be open to taking feedback. And in a way, like, a lot of these companies have improved to a point where they say, if you have any concerns at all, please tell us.
Yes.
And they say it so many times that you're just like, yes, if I have a concern, I will tell you.
Which is good, right?
Great,
Like, I would
it's
rather
amazing.
work with a client
Who's
that's
very
like that.
open-minded.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but like I said, it's really, this is really more like how to avoid those sorts of hiccups.
I'm just gonna mention in our previous episode we did say about outsourcing that when they're partnering with an agency, the agency is able to take care of most of the onboarding, like the hiring and
Yes.
stuff like that, and because you're outsourcing because they know their stuff,
Yes.
right? But this comes with the goals part of things. What they know, right? What the outsourced agency knows might not be the top goals that you're wanting to happen.
It's not always HT and CSAT. It might be, are you spreading enough awareness about the
Yes.
about the client? So it's really more about that interchange
Yes.
of ideas. You can't just say, we know what we're doing. We have to get into your heads in order for you to tell us what you really want to do. And a lot of agents are actually really, really good. Sorry, a lot of outsourcing companies are really good in understanding what they need, being able to give that feedback. If you're not doing that, do that. You have to be able to close the loop. When they say here's a process that we need to outsource, you need to be able to tell them, let's look for achievable goals,
Yes.
and tell us what you need or where you need to take your company to in order for them to be able to work and say, because the process will be the same. If you outsource customer support, they will be receiving concerns from customers,
Yeah.
but it's what you do with those customers. Do you just answer their questions, but do you tell them that we need to hear what the customers think about the product and
Yes.
how else we can improve on that product that gives added value to you as an agency. Like, you gave us that feedback based on data that you collected from the customers, and if you didn't set those goals
Yeah. In
from the onset,
Yeah.
and some people are just, some customers are just willing to just throw away that feedback because it doesn't matter. Like, to them, in a way, it's spam. I answered your question, and then they
Or
said
they have other ways to get that feedback.
they could,
Yeah.
they could have like voice of the customer. But the main point is, if you don't tell them what to watch out for. Or rather, if you don't tell, should we watch out for stuff like this? Like, and most people are just like, if I give you the answer, I'm not willing to listen to anything else. Not necessarily willing, because you're in your head. I answered the question. I answered the question. I answered the question. If they say, I think your product could be better if you did this. If you added pink, for example, and you didn't bring back to
Yeah.
the customer, and
Right.
turns out that adding pink to their website would make them adopt the product more.
Yeah.
Like, it's a silly
It's a silly notion, but,
But
I mean, if
it
we're
could be
talking
that.
about usability, it's good actually.
UI.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah.
But anyway, I are we taking ourselves in the right direction here? I feel like we're just
Yeah.
having so much fun talking about.
The onboarding hiccups. I think yes, we're on the right track. I'm trying to think if there's any other onboarding hiccup we
I
experience.
wish there was an opportunity to hear back from
Yeah, for our listeners.
from our listeners, but no, we're not taking any callers. But if you have any comments, we'd love to read that. If you have any similar experiences, we'd love to hear that as well. But I think in this case, we're drawing from experience,
yeah.
and I could safely say that the experience is vast enough that if this is worth picking up on, I hope whoever you are who's listening to this is taking down notes and then
Yes.
making immediate changes. If you're just about to win a contract, don't sit on your laurels. Prepare that entire checklist, but at the same time, be prepared to listen to the customer, because at some point you don't want to seem like, okay, so here's a list of questions that we want to, when the customer was already, your client is already being proactive.
Very transparent about
you have to be able to, like, to do the dance. Like,
Yes.
if they're not asking, then you'll
You'll
ask.
ask,
But if
yeah.
they're already providing the questions, shut up and listen,
Yes.
and take down notes, and then maybe just look at your list. Which one are they checking off for you proactively, and then just ask the questions that matter. Because there was a weirdly proactive instance when the customer was like, I want to tell you that I'm going to be transparent, blah, 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 which he said at the beginning. And
Yeah.
it felt like my
there
agent
wasn't
was
even
listening.
There wasn't even small talk at all.
There wasn't small talk, but he was like giving all of those items. And then when the agent had a chance to speak, they were like, I just want you to let you know that you can be transparent about anything. When he literally, that was like the
Yeah,
first thing that he
yes.
said. I was like, it's just the funniest thing. But anyway, I feel like it can be all over the place, right? But if you set it up right, I think this is one of those things that we can safely summarize, that we didn't
Yes.
really go all over the place. Establish goals,
Yes, and communicate those goals.
communicate those goals. Make sure that in your hiring process that if you really just try to match it, gauge the gauge the
actual
right, the
scope of-
fit,
yeah.
the scope of the work, and whether this guy can fit. There are VAs who will be able to rise up to the occasion.
Yes.
Yes. But when you're an
But not
agency,
always.
and but not
Not
always,
always.
and that's not a risk that you can take, because as an agency, you burn through a lot of resources to earn, so rather to win a client's contract. That's acquisition in any business. That's something that any company would spend a ton of money on.
Yeah.
Like in our case, it might be our resources, it might be
Yes.
our team's resources, but nevertheless, those are resources that are spent, and it's too risky not it's too risky at this point to say this person has potential
Yeah.
to meet this client's expectations. No, no, don't go
No.
there.
Yeah.
If you want to
Try
take
to
a
match
risk on
us.
some, yeah.
Yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
want to risk somebody like that, like take them under your wing
I
and train
mean,
them a little bit.
you could take a risk for, getting
Oh,
someone based on their potential, but that also depends on how the company culture is for your client.
it could be. Are
Yeah.
they willing to take risks on agents like that? If they say clearly communicated, they it would be a plus if they have this skill.
Yes.
But I would love to have somebody who has that get go
Yes.
attitude, will be willing to train them. Okay, fine, yes, that's why I literally pull back. There can be that kind of mindset, but
Yep.
that's the kind of matching that we said
Yes.
we need to be looking for. You might come back to the client and say, you know what, you said that you needed somebody who has the confidence to take on roles. He's not scared of anything. But guess what? He doesn't have any of the skills any of the other skills
So
that you
then
were looking
yeah.
for. Are you willing to take this person on?
Yes.
And if they say yes, okay,
Then
then at least expectations are set
yes.
and met. Uh, you know,
What's the
uh,
next one in your list?
I was
Looks like a long list.
yeah, document
Yeah.
document every conversation. Document every
Every
conversation.
conversation, document all of the processes that
All of the
needs,
asks.
yeah, all of the asks, and it's not, simply just having all of these processes in your head.
Yes, you can't just assume that that's how you understood it. You continually have to tell the person, are we aligned with what we're wanting? Because at the end of the day, you're gonna just have to let your babies go and
Yes.
deal with it themselves. And you kind of want to come back and say, if the client says, they're not meeting my expectations. Let's go back to the list of expectations that we talked about.
Yep.
Are they really not meeting it, or do you have to realign it? Because you have the power to do that, talking to a client. And then lastly,
I think
oh,
no. I think one thing that we also mentioned was that in those first few days, make sure that your agent and the client, they're comfortable with each other, because that also sets the tone for the
yes,
partnership.
yeah,
It could be, for some, and I like this for most of our clients, where they would try and get to know the agent, just
and
so
set
that
up
they,
one-on-one
yeah,
meetings.
yes, because that's where trust is built. It's not just performing tasks really well, but also having that relationship,
True, true, true.
because that also brings trust and brings transparency, and for the agent to give you feedback, which makes your company better.
Yeah. Then there's also again, just the last 2 points of us rounding this up. First impressions will always matter.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't go into your first meeting wearing a tank top
Yeah.
unless it's an adult chat channel.
I mean, even with those contracts, they don't expect you to wear something like that. But anyway, that's besides the point.
It's very besides the
The
point.
point.
There are some contracts where you're comfortable enough where you could see your client wearing his tank top. That gives you a signal to wear your tank top, and
Yeah.
you're off the tank top land. But when you say first impressions, like keep away from distracting backgrounds.
Yes.
It
Your
definitely
audio
could
has to
set
be
the tone. The
good.
audio has to be good. The
Yeah.
internet has to be good. If you have to
Yes.
go to somebody else's house who has better internet than you,
I mean, regardless if it's a voice account or not a non-voice account, the
if you
audio
meet
still
the client,
if you meet the client, the audio still has to be good.
yeah. And then lastly, milestones. Don't
Milestone,
forget
yeah.
to tell them about the milestones
Yes.
in the beginning, and that you will go back to milestones after the first set, like 30, 60, 90 days.
Depends on what the client wants, or when
Yeah.
they want to
Some
circle back
clients,
in.
some clients are busy and they only want to talk to you at the end of the year. That's fine. But
But at least
if
that
you
expectation
can,
is, yeah.
you can do it. So I hope this helps. If you're an agency owner, even if you're somebody who got hired through an agency or an outsourcing company,
Or a
you wanna,
client that's looking for an
or
outsourcing.
a client who's looking to outsource. These are some really helpful notes for you, because if it's your first relationship, you might be dealing with a brand new outsourcing center, and they could be learning the ropes as well. It takes, in this case, it takes three to tango.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, if it's it takes three to tango, you all kind of have to do your part. You can't say I didn't know, therefore like ignorance is never an excuse
Yes.
anyway. But
Yes.
I hope in this way it can lend to your success.
Yes.
Um,
I think we
I
got
had
some very, very useful
I
points
had
in.
fun going
Yes.
back to this topic. I
Yeah.
always thought that we're done talking about
I
this.
think, with all of the processes that we have in place right now, there's always room for improvement. And that's also part of the onboarding
Yeah.
process. There's always room for improvement. But at least now, if you are listening to this podcast, you kind of have a cheat list, I would say, of
Yeah.
things that you would have to prepare for, so that the onboarding would be seamless.
Yep.
So that, I think, ends our episode 3
It does. It
of
does.
outsourcing
I'm
and
happy
more.
and I'm happy with how this conversation
Yeah.
went. I hope you guys who are listening did pick up something really nice about this as well. Again, my name is Francis,
And I'm Penny.
and you are listening to
Outsourcing and more.
Please tune in to our next episode.